Hello, my name's Leo Murray. I am Director of Innovation and a co-founder at the climate change charity Possible. Now, the first thing that you need to understand about the aviation climate change problematic is this: technology is not going to save us. Now, that's not to say that it won't help, and it's very important that we accelerate R&D into zero carbon flight. But none of these solutions which are on the table or on the horizon for decarbonising air travel are capable of scaling at the speed which is required to meet our climate change commitments. We can't meet that target and still cater to all projected future demand for air travel. So what that means is, if you can't rely on technology to magic the problem away, we are going to need to introduce deliberate policy to manage demand for flights. This is a very, very difficult thing to do politically. It ought not to be that hard because air travel is artificially cheap, because kerosene, jet fuel, is untaxed by international treaty, and plane tickets are 0% rated for VAT alongside things like wheelchairs and baby clothes. So you can see there's certainly scope for taxing air travel higher, but there's a problem here, which is that if you use a blanket pricing mechanism to increase the cost of air travel and thereby bring demand down within safe limits, what happens is most of the reduction in flights comes from people at the bottom of the income spectrum, and you effectively make air travel the preserver for wealthy elite, and it becomes inaccessible to people on low incomes. That's our own modelling shows that is the case. That's why we propose instead a kerosene tax is a good idea, but you don't want to have that as your only pricing mechanism. That's why we propose a frequent flyer levy. This is the fairest way to manage demand and keep it within safe limits for the climate. What a frequent flyer levy would do is give everybody one tax-free flight each year, with tax kicking in at the second flight and rising incrementally with each additional flight after that within a given year. Our modelling shows that in that scenario, most of the reduction in air travel comes from people at the top of the income spectrum who are currently taking many, many flights each year. So it's a fair way to do it. The reason why it's an effective climate change policy is that most flights are taken by frequent flyers. So in Scotland, over 50% of the population take zero flights at all in a given year. And UK-wide, about 15% of the population takes 70% of all flights. So targeting policy at the group that is responsible for most of the environmental damage makes sense. It makes sense tactically, but it makes sense in principle as well, because you don't want to price the poor out of the skies. You know, some of us have relatives overseas and things, and we wouldn't be able to see them anymore under a blanket pricing mechanism if that was your only solution. So I think it's worth saying, I've said technology won't save us. The problem there is that about 80% of all emissions from aviation come from long haul journeys, and there are no options for zero carbon air travel across those kind of distances. However, electric planes, and I know one of the other speakers is going to speak about this, electric planes are a fantastic solution for short haul journeys. And if you look at Scotland, you know, many of the most essential air trips in Scotland are about connectivity for remote communities in the Highlands and Islands. And this is the ideal use case and the ideal discrete market to pioneer electric flight, because you're talking about small aircraft traveling short distances with few passengers over terrain that is very, very difficult to cross by other means. So strongly support Nicola Sturgeon's ambitions in this area, and look at Norway. Norway has a very similar situation with remote communities and archipelagos and so on. They've committed to all electric short haul flights by 2040. I'd like to see those dates brought forward. They could be brought forward, but Scotland should work with Norway on this. Finally, I would just say many people would like to travel more sustainably already today, and price isn't the only reason why people choose planes over trains. It's also about time. And so we run a employer kite mark scheme called Climate Perks, where employers can sign up to give employees additional days of paid leave each year to travel to their holiday destinations by train rather than plane. We've been getting good pickup for that. Obviously, people aren't flying a great deal at the moment, but we think that's a good, practical, pragmatic solution for the short term. Thanks so much.